Right, this is going to be another video about looking at the way TA optimized radial lights work, but specifically at looking at the way you can use them to light using ambient light as opposed to the diffuse light component of the TA optimized radial light. We're going to use the boost light setting for the TA mode, which is inherently suffers from quite a lot of noise, but we seem to be able to get around this using the lights in a slightly different way. And we can also show how they can be used as gels to affect one another, and so it's going to be a bit of a investigation, experiment, exploration and so forth, so you'll just have to bear with me because I've only really just started investigating the way these light sources work, but I can see there's a lot of potential in them, and the more people that get to experiment with them, the more we can discover about them in a shorter time. So to set things up, what I'm going to do is turn the atmosphere off and set it to black. So I'm going to disable the sunlight. So at the moment there is no light whatsoever in the scene. And then I'm going to set my first light source up. So I create an ordinary radial light. I'll edit it. It's going to be true ambience optimized. Diffuse setting is going to be relevant because of the way I'm going to use it. Specular is anyway. I'm going to use gel. This fall off setting doesn't have any influence on the way it's going to work. I go into procedural and I need it to be in normal mode. The transparency controls the gel setting through the transparent channel. The volume channel also influences this, but you can't apply a texture to the volume in this way, so you could do it with a volumetric material, but that would slow the render down tremendously. But you can apply a texture to transparent. So by driving the effect through the ambient channel, we can combine one texture with the gel texture as well. So you have to look in turn at each one, the way each one of these works. So to start with, I'm going to make sure the transparent channel is set to fully white. So this will allow the light to transmit through the surface without tinting it anyway. And the ambient, I'm going to use the texture created in another tutorial here, and I'm going to set that spherical here and set the scaling down to 10%, so I know it goes through a full spectrum in one cycle. And the final thing to make this work is I'm going to include the background only, and this will exclude all other things in the scene, including grouped objects. And what this does is it means we're only working with the ambient output. If these other things weren't excluded, then we would also be getting an effect off the diffuse. So it seems that TA optimized lighting, ambience optimized lighting, is capable of producing two kinds of light. One that's controlled through the diffuse channel and is quite intense, and you can change the fall off and the color, and then gel kind, you can use the ambient channel to control the output, and the transparent channel to control the way the surface of the light source filters the light around it. So it's quite a sophisticated sort of light source even on its own. So now if I've set this up correctly and I get it into render mode, premium effects, I set the raise per pixel down to improve render performance, turn on true ambience, make sure that true ambient scattering correction is checked and boost light is checked, and I'm going to set the maximum ray depth down to 4 to improve render efficiency. And if I give that a render, then you can see there's a faint rainbow coloured light here that corresponds to our light source. So as I'll show, this is entirely dependent on the global ambience channel. So if I go to sky and fog here and turn this up to fully white on the global ambience channel, there you can go, that's driving the effect now. You can't see that it's having much influence outside. We can see a bit more of this by changing the gamma correction, though I don't necessarily approve of that for most render modes. It'll help in this video because you can see what's happening with the effect. So this transition zone here is from the inside of the light source to the outside, and the behaviour of the light source is quite significant change in behaviour because of this transparency setting. Okay, well, I said that with a confidence that I don't necessarily feel, but you have a look. If we change the transparency colour here, so if we change the transparent colour to let's say blue, for example, so now this will act as a filter and we've got rainbow coloured light being transmitted in, and it's going to be filtered on its way out. So did that change anything with this one light source, or is the light source incapable of seeing its own filter? Well, I would suggest that to some extent it can, because if I make the transparency non-existent, then it seems to cut off the effect of the blue filter for outgoing light. I don't know whether it changes it much for ingoing light, but there seems to be some influence there. So it's not 100%, but it is having an effect. And there we go, we're back to the blue filtering, and you see the change in the colour of the light there. The influence it has becomes more pronounced when you start introducing light sources outside this light source, and it's got to transmit light into it. And this will affect both ambient generated transience light and also the diffuse generated transience optimised light as well. Like I say, it is a bit of a challenging thing to explain. So if I set this back to white, then white, okay, fully white, seems to let the most light through anyway, and we go into the deep texture editor and we switch this so it's producing red or black. So now we've got red around one side there. Then that allows us to control the direction of the light within the sphere. Outside the sphere things seem to scatter differently, but you can see now I can reposition this light source, and so that gives us a more of a control over this light, but it's not creating a lot of noise even though we're using the boost light. But what you've got to bear in mind is there's this transitional area wherever you have the edge of the sphere coinciding with other geometry, so that could be a bit of a problem. If we edit this now, once again tinker around here, supposing we make this fully blue now, it might allow us to modify the red light coming out so that the transition's not as pronounced. It still exists, but it is filtering it out to some extent. What this also would mean is if we put another one of these, just copy and paste this light source so it's behaving exactly the same, and put it outside, you can see now there's a brighter band and the blue filter's preventing the red light getting in. So now different coloured filters can affect the way the light behaves as it goes in. So if we go back to the inner light here and edit it and go into the procedural again, and we change this transparent to be under the control of a basic texture, you can see I've been testing this already. So we take this basic check blue here, we can see how it's mapped, so we get a bit of a preview. So now we've got blue areas and white areas, so much should of the red light should get through the white area because that combines all three colours, and the blue area square should be stopping the light. So now this inner one is acting as a filter for the other one, so we should get, you can see it here just slightly at the edges, we're getting red checks because there's red lights let through these square areas. So already you're able to control the light in quite a sophisticated way because of the operation of these two channels. Now, what's the practical upshot of this? Well, let's go back to this radial light on the outside where we've got it just set up with blue. Right, so even though we're dealing with only with two very straightforward things, the transparent channel and the ambient channel, because there's a lot of ways these can be combined. So switch the transparent over to the procedural here and use the ambient channel to generate white light, you can see that this will have a different effect again in the way it behaves. So now the white light's tending to transmit in, the gel doesn't seem to have any effect internally on its own light source, but it's clearly having an effect externally in that it's colouring the light on the red side. So just swapping those two channels round and it's changed the nature of the light fairly dramatically. And obviously if you've got several of these light sources in operation, so we'd edit this, go in here, I'll switch back, so we just got the coloured light here, and then I'll check out of that and go recreate that light source, edit it, go into the here, and if we remember we've got these other channels that are also available, so we could have a green that's also got a light bias. We can now start combining the lights, and obviously where they meet then they blend to form another colour which you could then exclude with a filter. So you've got a lot of options now with this. This is before we've even started to to consider what might happen if we now introduce another transience light that doesn't use a gel. So in this case, let's see, we know how to make it more powerful now. With transience optimization, this slide doesn't seem to do anything, as Rashad pointed out, so this should, as I've set it up actually without even increasing the diffuse, producing a lot of light, and obviously with the mode that we're in, with it being boost light, we might get quite a bit of noise out of this. But if we set it around the scene, so it's a general light, then you can see now that we've got the other colours in, and this is producing a lot of white. But we could go into these radial lights, edit this, and go into the procedural here, and if we made the transparent here blue, like so. Oh, I didn't seem to have set it blue, and oh, it'll be Camtasia Studio. Let's have a look at that again. Transparent. So there. Oh, odd, isn't it? Oh well. Obviously it's behaving a bit quirkily for some reason. It's been known to happen. So I'm setting these transparent colours to blue. That one's worked. So hopefully both those will now be blue, and you can see now the effect of the filter on the diffuse generated transience light. So now we've got the red and the green on the inside, and a lot of different combinations essentially. So this is my point. You've got, if you set the light up for the ambient generation, as I showed you at the beginning, then you've got the filter option. You can control the lighting, you can make it more directional. With the diffuse lighting, you have no option to set it under the control, so it's only a solid block of colour, in which case you're left to repositioning the light outside, and this is all very well, but it seems to generate a lot of noise. The outside seems to generate more noise than the inside with these light sources. So it's not really compatible with boost light in that sense, but when you start using it with these ambient light sources that are generating it through the transience optimization, you do get a different quality of light. So you've seen my examples there, and now I've gone on with a bit of few experiments this morning to try and use them as light sources to, on a more serious lighting project. So we'll load one of those up, so I'll drop one of these in. Okay, right. This took a while to render because I was obviously fighting the noise that you still get in transience mode, but about an hour to render this scene at this resolution. And what we've got here is a radial light on the outside, and this one is not using a gel, so that's providing the key light along this side. And on the inside we've got one of these procedural lights, bearing in mind the diffusion doesn't do anything as it happens, so it's just got that set because I was trying things out. So the ambient and the transparent are linked together, so that will be influencing the light coming through and controlling it a bit to control the noise problem. These two lights are the same, and the idea behind these, if I go in here for the other one, like I say, the diffuse wasn't really necessary in this case. The idea is to provide a bit of lighting, cool lighting on this side. This background, in case you're interested, it is one of Horror and I's forthcoming projects, which is actually a concrete material that I've adapted. That was a metal material that can be adapted, but it just wanted to provide some kind of light, lit background to provide context for the scene. So that was one experiment. The worst thing is the hair. The hair, because it has a lot of blend transparency in it, really slows the render down. If she didn't have the hair, obviously it wouldn't look quite as good, but it would speed the render time up. So there's your biggest issue with this render mode, and the idea is try and set the maximum ray depth down as far as possible, so the lowest number there possible, and still get the effect you desire. So just do plot renders. And another test that I did using same sort of idea, different background, except this time I took a chance with making the key light a lot brighter, and a very similar setup anyway. And this one obviously with the key light, the battle is with the noise. So you can see we were using transience boost light again, and there's a little bit of noise in here, so perhaps a bit more gel filtering might have sorted that out. But as I say, this is mostly just experimentation at this moment, because it's only been a few days since this sort of worked out how to make these light sources generate this kind of light. So, you know, it's you now know as much as I do, more or less. So there you go. That was all I really wanted to cover. As I find out more things, then I'll make more videos.